This podcast is meant for general health information and is not meant to override any medical advice. All questions will be screened and not contain any personal information. If you want a private consultation, contact us via positivechoice.org, or you can contact your provider directly. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Positive Choice Wellness Podcast. My name is Melanie. I'm an exercise physiologist.
And my name is Kimberly, and I'm a registered dietitian.
Yay! So we apologize for not having an episode last month. We had some technical difficulties. Nothing bad to us, just technical difficulties. But we're back. We're back now. We missed you all. We wanted to have an episode. We really did. We actually recorded one and everything. But things happen.
Oh, yes. Such is life.
It got lost. Got lost to the depths of the ether somewhere. But that's what happens. Tech is not always reliable.
Truth.
So what we wanted to kind of just get started with, of course, is I just want to check in with you, Kimberly. I want to see what brings you joy today.
Yes. Today, what's bringing me joy is this lovely weather that we've been having. Nice sun, nice warmth, not too hot. Been great.
Yes. It's so nice. We live in the best place,
yourself?
San Diego.
I know. We really do.
Yeah. I would say the same.
Yes.
That was one of the things I was like, gosh, I love living in San Diego. It's so nice here. The weather's always so nice, except for those couple of months where it's not. And it's great most of the time.
Exactly. I love it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of lovely weather, it's that time of year also, I think is worth mentioning when things get a little chaotic in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Lack of structure, right?
Yeah.
So that's our theme today, which is oriented around, when we're trying to stick to our healthy behaviors, our good habits, the things we want to do, and then you just don't have that structure there to help us out. Because when I talk about structure, I'm talking about like if you work a 9 to 5 or something, you have a set work schedule, a set thing you're doing, or if you have school, you always have these certain classes, like you have a structure in place. You know when you're going to eat, when you go to bed, when you wake up, it's pretty consistent. Mm-hmm. As compared to other instances where maybe you have less structure. Vacations are the first thing I think of since it's summertime. We go on our vacations. Yeah. Or maybe your kids are out of school and you're off for the summer. There's an option right there. That can get chaotic and less structured, especially because you're trying to create structure for them. Mm-hmm. And, another one I keep thinking of too is like weekends.
Yes.
It doesn't even have to be a summer thing. It just be like, I don't do the same things on weekends as I do during weekdays. There's less structure, right?
Totally. Or even if you do have structure on most weekends, if you have a 3-day weekend, sometimes that throws a wrench in our plans a little bit.
Right?
But yeah, definitely.
And so I figured it'd be a good topic to bring up because this is the time of year where I feel like a lot of people do struggle with that lack of structure, and it'd be a helpful thing to kind of kick off our summer with. Oh boy.
Yes. Oh boy. Yeah. How can we kick it off on the right path? I like it.
Yeah. So as far as lack of structure, we're talking what are those things that we tend to struggle with when there's lack of structure? Let's start there, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Some of the things that come to my mind are like, whatever is a part of like your normal routine almost. So if you have like, a scheduled part of your day where you get your workout in or get some self-care perhaps or whatever. And then all of a sudden your structure goes away. It's hard for you to be like, I think it'd be easy to be like, oh, I'll do that later. And then, later becomes tomorrow, which becomes the next day or something like that. But that's what comes to my mind when I think about that.
I mean, when I think of the lack of structure, obviously, like we don't have to set an alarm to wake up.
Yes.
You can just wake up whenever. Although, unless you have an obligation or something, generally, I think on the weekends, we don't set alarms. We just sleep in, which that right there, that lack of structure, you're like, oh, I can sleep in past the time I normally wake up, which if you're actually really routine, you shouldn't, but
Yeah, it's true. But
you might stay up super late because the next day you have the ability to sleep in if you can. Those things that we do different stuff sometimes and it can throw us off. And one of the things I hear a lot, for example, we have a program here at Positive Choice, which are medical fasting program or medical weight management program where people can take 5 shakes a day to help them lose weight. And anyone can take it, by the way. If you're hearing this, go, oh, really? Yep, go ahead. You can take an introductory session to learn all about it.
Yep.
But one of the things I hear is a big plus, a pro of that program is the fact that there's structure.
Yes. Oh my
You
gosh, that
have
is so true. Yeah.
Yeah, you have those 5 shakes you take a day or whatever version you're on of that program. There's alternate versions, of course, but it's built into
Mhm.
a structured plan of you're going to do this every single day, regardless of what day it is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. Because I have people close to me that have done the program, and that's absolutely been one of their favorite parts. Is like the thinking element is like totally taken out of it, and it's just like you follow this like set plan for the day. Yeah,
Exactly. And that's
yeah,
and that's obviously what I've noticed too, is people really love just having something they know what's going to happen, they know what's coming next, and that's what we're talking about. Come with structure. You know your day, right?
right, exactly.
I kind of liken it to our animals if you have pets. I kind of liken it to that. We always have that running joke of like we're all creatures of habit and you'll tend to do the same things at the same time and do the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I think when we know what's coming next, we can just play out our day in that order. But then of course when we
Mhm.
come to positions like on a vacation,
Right.
you're not getting up at 7 to make sure you're ready to get to work by 8. Like you're not doing that. Or well, if I
Yeah.
mean, assuming work is that far away that you could do that or something.
Right. Right. Yeah, for
So I
sure.
guess I guess what comes down to is like, what do you do when you're in a position where you don't have structure, and how can you stay on track? Especially if your
Yeah.
goal is like, I want to make sure I'm still exercising and eating healthy. And it's really hard when you don't know what exactly is coming next, right?
It is hard. Yeah, especially when yeah, kind of exactly like what you're saying when it's a little wishy-washy what you got coming up. For me, I think about like you have to keep in mind what your priorities are, kind of, right? Like you can't like I was just saying earlier, oh, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, and then we never do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have to have priorities, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't know how to make yourself stick to them, but having priorities is important.
Well, I mean, obviously, we can't make people do anything, but
True, true.
that's kind of the issue, right? Is because we can't make anybody do anything. You
Yep.
are actually the only person who can make you do anything. You are the one who's in control of this scenario, right?
Yes, I love that. I've had someone told me once that no one can work out for you, right? Only you
Yeah.
can work out. And I was like, "Ooh, that is profound," because it's true, but you don't like necessarily think of it like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's super true.
I had another similar conversation with a class of mine a couple of days ago where I was talking about cheating versus choosing to eat. And I was mentioning like
Ooh.
cheating is when you're saying that you had no control. I'm like, that's not true. You had 100% control because you chose to put that in your mouth. Like no one held you down and
Ooh.
shoved food in your mouth.
That's true.
So that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like we are the people who have the ability to change the path. And it just comes down
Mhm.
to, I think what you said was your priorities. I think that's actually
Right.
really important to kind of touch on here. And I think that's a great way we can start this conversation, priorities.
Yeah.
People don't realize that. I've had this, that's actually one of my favorite activities to do in my classes. I'll say, like, I want you guys to write down your top 5 priorities in your life, period. Just write them down.
Ooh.
And so I'll have
Okay.
my classes write those priorities down and then I have them look at
Mhm.
it and I ask them this question. I'm like, do healthy eating and exercise fall into the top 3?
Wow. Okay.
You'd be amazed at how many people don't even make the top 5. They're not even on the list.
Wow. I
Yeah.
believe it. That's wild though.
And so it's an interesting discussion to have. This is very, like, it's really interesting, right? Because you're like, oh, what are your
Mhm.
top five priorities? And you could be like, oh, well, work or family or religion or this or that. And you can list off all these things. And
Right.
then I go, okay, so how are you supposed to do all those things if you're not taking care of yourself? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't be there for your family if you're not taking care of your body and they have to take care of you. So,
Right. Right. Yeah. You can't be there for somebody else if you're always throwing yourself on the back burner. That's good.
exactly. And that's something that I think is worth mentioning here is when we talk about creating structure and sticking to it, a lot of it comes down to your priorities in life because that's the driving factor here. To want to make these changes, to stick to them, you need to have some priority with that. You got to be like, I really want to make this something I'm actually going to focus on
Yeah.
because the weight
Mhm.
just doesn't come off or, the exercise just doesn't happen as we're saying. Like those things just don't happen.
Right. Yeah. The vegetables don't just appear in your stomach, right? Like
No.
you have to take action in order for it to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
That's good.
hard. It's a challenge, because I think this lack of structure also it can lead to like some hedonistic type behavior because you feel a little bit more relaxed, right? Like, oh, I'm
Right.
feeling okay. I don't have to do a lot of things today. I can enjoy myself a nice lunch today or whatever, or go out to dinner and start
Mhm.
indulging in things. Or,
Mhm.
I like to use the example of a vacation because maybe you're in a position where you don't have a lot of options, right? Because
Yeah.
it's one thing if it's a weekend, you have actually quite a bit more support there than you realize because you're at
Right.
home. You
Mhm.
have a fridge, you have the ability to choose what goes in your home. There's those things. Whereas on vacation, you might have limited options.
Yeah.
You might find that you're only able to eat out at certain restaurants because that's all that's around, or whatever.
Yeah.
And maybe the selections they have aren't very healthy. That's another option, right?
Yes. Yes. Truth. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
know. And that makes me think of something too. We had a coworker once mentioned that like part of the reason why our healthy behaviors are so difficult is because it comes at a cost, right? It's not like, it costs your time, your energy, your whatever. And
Hmm.
that's what I think about too when our routine kind of falls by the wayside. Maybe you just want to kick your feet up and be like, lazy, so to speak, but it costs something to like make the good food or to move your body, right? It doesn't just
Yeah.
happen. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, but I love that point too, because it does come at a cost. It really does. Like,
Right.
you have to give a little to get a little. That's just how it
Yeah.
works, unfortunately, with these healthy behaviors. Like, it doesn't just
Right.
happen for free, but nothing in life is free.
Right.
So,
True.
like, we have to give a little. And sometimes I think, yeah, we want to kick up, we want to relax. We don't have to give a little. It's our day off, we're on vacation, whatever.
Right.
And what I always like to share is this lovely story I have of a patient, and I hope she listens to this because she'll know who she is,
Aw.
if she does. But a long time ago, like when we were at the old building, this is a long time ago, I
Oh,
was teaching a healthy balance class, and I had a patient of mine. And like this is also the case of like if you're ever on vacation, like this is a prime example of how you can still be successful. It just comes down to your priorities. And
yes.
so her husband cooked for her, and I guess her husband probably cooked a little more indulgently than she would have liked, and so she was really struggling with
Mhm.
losing weight when she was at home. She just
Okay.
wasn't losing as much as she wanted. It was kind of coming off really slowly, and it was just really a struggle for her. And
Mhm.
she also had a job where she would go on these business trips. So it's not really a vacation per se, but it's a business trip. So less
Right.
structure because you're somewhere you're not familiar with. And she didn't really know what to do. And we actually had a little conversation in class of like, well, where should I eat? Like, what should I do? And so we're giving all these tips. And
Mhm.
she found this like Mexican chain restaurant that's out there and
Mhm.
got herself some grilled chicken and vegetables and like rice and stuff and beans, and would just regularly eat that while she was there just to do the best she could because she's like, well, I'm
Yeah.
eating out. I don't have a choice, but I'll just do the best I can.
Mhm.
She came
Mhm.
back and lost so much weight.
No
So much weight,
way. Oh my
right?
gosh. Amazing. That's
And
amazing.
it means that even though you may not have the structure, it's still possible to stick to your priorities and focus on what you want to focus on. If you really want to get something done, you're going to work on it, right?
Yes. Ooh, there you go. I feel like you just summed it up so beautifully. If you really want to get something done, you will, right?
Mhm.
And I think that it's really easy for us on vacations or times where like, weekends, whatever, where the routine is different to make excuses and justify like not working on our healthy habits or eating, the crazy splurgy foods, which don't get me wrong, we can absolutely do that. But it's
Mhm.
when the weekend is like, from Friday at noon to Sunday at midnight, like that's a lot of splurginess happening, but,
Yeah.
um, I just totally lost my train of thought, but anyway, what you said was good.
I mean, the thing I keep thinking, because obviously, like the way I said it, I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, it's just a simple, just prioritize stuff. Like it's obviously, if
Right.
it was that simple, we'd all be doing it. So I want to be very clear. I didn't say
True.
that if it came off kind of like I think it's not that big of a deal. No, it is. It's a pretty big deal. Like we have a lot of challenges. That's why we're talking about this because
Yeah,
it isn't
yeah.
it isn't so simple just to make that a priority, which is what I want to do as a
Mhm.
follow up question, which is how can we make that a priority, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's good.
I think we've established at this point that
Yeah.
maybe it's not as high up on the priority list as you'd like it to be. How can we move
Mhm.
it up a couple notches to make it so that when you don't have the structure, you're still really wanting to focus on your goals?
Yeah, I love that. I think for me, I think about getting back into your why, right? Like, why are you choosing to make these I was gonna say choosing to make these choices.
Choosing your choices.
Why are you choosing your choices?
Because you wanted
but
to choose them.
yeah. Gosh, bless you. No, just kidding. But it comes down to that motivating factor, right? Like for a lot of people, it's wanting to improve your quality of life so that maybe you can run around and chase your kiddos, your grandkiddos, be around for graduations and weddings and things like that. Get off medications, or maybe simply bend over and tie your shoes, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is really, really important, because it's in those moments where the structure is gone, where you have to remember, like, why is it more important for me to prioritize my priorities?
Yeah. But
I
it's a
don't
fair
know.
point. Well, I think it's a fair
Mhm.
point. Like, if you remember why you started in the first place, that can be the reason
Mhm.
why you still stick to it on the times that you
Mhm.
don't have that structure, because you're thinking, no, I want to get this done. Like, I really want to work on this. And,
Right.
obviously things will happen that are setbacks. Life isn't perfect. I'm not saying you're going to
Yes.
like nail it every time. That's not
No,
going to
no,
happen.
no.
If
Yeah.
if it happens, actually, great,
Yeah.
fantastic, but that's not
Bonus
likely.
points. Yeah.
Like, life is kind of complex like that.
For sure.
So yeah, I think for that, at least remembering why are you doing this in the first place is a great first step. Like, what's your why? Why are you trying to make these healthy changes? What are you doing this for yourself for, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once you got that why, who said you can't have structure though? Like,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
can you can make a plan when there isn't, like, I recognize a lot of people don't want to have structure, but the thing is, we like structure. People love structure. We love
Mhm.
it. It's like
Mhm.
ingrained into us. We love knowing when things are going to happen. We hate
We
change.
do. We know. That is so true. We don't like the unknown. That's why people don't like the
No.
dark.
Yeah. So, like, and this is the silliest thing. So, like, I just recently went on a vacation, and I have a
Mhm.
plan because, like, I don't have structure, and I love structure. I'm very much like these people we're talking about. I am also like,
Mhm.
structure is good. I like structure. And
Yes.
I was like, okay, so my plan is on my vacation, I'm going to work out. Like, I already planned it, but I was like, but I'm going to be real because I'm on vacation. So I may not work out every single day. I might like skip a day because I'm on vacation, and that's okay. So I brought enough for like most days of the week. I was like, yeah, that's good. I was like, okay, so I'm going to make sure a point to make sure I get an exercise in. I want to do it first thing. So I'll give myself a time frame because I usually just go to like a resort or something. So like between this time and this time, I'll make sure I get my workout in. And then I'll have my breakfast before that. I'll make sure it's a reasonable amount of time so I don't get sick. And then after that, I'll have this much time lounging at the pool, and I'll make sure dinner's at this time, and then I can do whatever in the evening. And it's like I literally plan out my day so I have structure and I know what I'm gonna do next.
I love that. I so love that.
And
That's great.
almost every day will be pretty much on the same level of like, what am I doing today? Oh, it's these things in this order. And like, I always know, wake up, like, I know what I'm doing today. And like, I know not everybody needs to be that detail oriented. I think it's more of like a type A brain, honestly, but it's, it's helpful for me because I know what's coming next and I know how to plan my day out and plan around what I want to do. And I'm not going to make it
Yeah.
so tight. Like, I'm not going exactly at 9 a.m. I'm going to the gym. Like, no, I'm not going
Right.
to like, I'm not going to set an alarm to wake up, but I know then the order of operations when I do wake up, it's going to be breakfast, then gym, then whatever, right? Like, I have an
Yeah.
order of things that are going to happen.
I love that. Yeah. And I'm honestly the exact same way. I say, I'm not like, okay, from 9 to 9:05, I'm here. And then from
Mhm.
9:05 to, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, but like
But yeah, having like a
ranges.
map. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. A range, and kind of knowing what you at least want to check off that day. Right.
Yeah. And
And
most of it, maybe.
exactly. Most of it. Yeah. If I get
Yeah.
80% of this done, I'll be hype about it.
Yeah, and like another element of this like planning that I do is like, for example, I'll be like, okay, well, I don't want to be too like, I'm on vacation, so I don't want to be too like I have to be perfect all the time with my health because
Totally.
it's hard to do that when you're on vacation in general. Like, I'm not saying you can't. It's
Mhm.
very possible to be healthy every single meal, but like, I'm on vacation. I want to enjoy myself a little bit.
Yeah.
So I set parameters around what I can do with my food. And it's just for me. Like, I don't set it for my husband. Like, he doesn't follow this. He can do whatever he wants, but he ends up following it because like I work here. Of course he's gonna do what I do. But
Yeah.
but like he or I will make a point of like, okay, breakfasts and lunches will be always healthy. It's gonna be fruit and yogurt and nuts in the morning. And then I'm not gonna have
Mhm.
juice. I'm usually gonna have my coffee because I like coffee. And then
Mhm.
lunchtime's gonna be a salad or, something really bright with lots of vegetables. And then dinner, whatever. I'll do whatever I want then. That's fine. I will enjoy myself for dinner. But the first two meals of the day are gonna be very, very healthy So I can
Yeah.
justify that. It's a way of me to say, I'm still working on it, but I can at least enjoy myself a little bit. So that way I don't go
Yes.
completely off the rails, because what I find a lot of people doing these vacations is because there's no laws, like, whoa, let's do what we want. I'm going to have bacon
Mm.
and eggs and bread and all this stuff for breakfast covered in butter and gravy. And then for lunch, I'm going to have fries and a burger and hot dogs. And then for dinner, I'm going to have a steak and some potatoes. And it's like, you can only
Yeah.
last so long doing that before you're going to notice some problems.
Yep.
And when people come back from vacation and be like, "Whoa, like I enjoyed myself." It's like, yeah, but you can still enjoy yourself within reason, right?
Yes, there you go. I think that's the key, is within reason. Because sometimes when you go too hard, you kind of wind up miserable, right? Like, I mean, we
Yeah.
don't feel peak tip top form when we, feel like we need to be rolled out of our vacation home. So that's not fun.
I
kinda
know that
think
feeling
about-
though.
Me too.
You're just like,
Me too. That's why I
"Ugh."
say it. Yeah, exactly. I kind of think of it as like the 80-20 rule, right? Like that 80-20 rule exists in nutrition, which is like 80% of the time you're on your game doing what you should be. 20% of the time you get some wiggle room.
Yep.
You can apply that same rule to vacations too. Even if you shift it a little, make it 70-30, like whatever. But having like the bulk of your, day be within reason, right?
Yeah.
And then allowing yourself to have some fun too, because we don't want to be like fun suckers. Like food is fun, vacation is fun.
Exactly.
But again, within reason, it's more special and more fun, I think, if you don't do it every second all the time. If you make it
Exactly.
special.
Like, what we're saying is, if you're having these days of lack of structure, like weekends can be included in this, where you you want to not have a lot of stuff you're doing, it's okay to have a generalized plan, and it can be just as simple as eating. Like, it doesn't have to be the stuff you do. Like, I'm so like, I need to have structure that I will do that to myself, but you don't need to do that extreme. You can just be like, no, I just want to make, like, this is my advice to people. If you go on a vacation or if it's the weekend, make sure that your breakfasts and your lunches, you're nailing it. And then you can enjoy yourself for dinner, or like pick a meal that you want to be your splurge meal. Maybe you're a brunch girl, like go for it, right? Like go have brunch in the morning and then do whatever you want or do healthy for the rest of the day or something, right? Like,
Exactly. I love that. Yeah.
It's just finding that balance in our day, that you're not going off the rails, because this is what I hear a lot in my classes. Like, well, what about cheat days? And like, I already talked about this. I had a conversation with class about choosing to eat. Cheating is a bad thing. So
right.
I don't encourage cheat days. In fact, I don't encourage using the word cheat at all. But these days where we're like, well, can I just go off the rails for an entire day? It's like, I mean, yeah, I mean, anyone can. I'm not saying you can't. Like, of course you can, but is it healthy? No.
Yeah.
So that's really the dilemma we're facing, is like, okay, yeah, you can like go off the rails, eat everything under the sun if you want to, but what's that going to do to you down the road? And I think a lot of people find they struggle, actually, is because they'll have like a couple, like, this is the weekend. I call them like the inverse weekend warriors, where like it's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday of the like, I'm going off the rails. And they do 3 whole days of chaos and they go, I'll get back on track on Monday. And it's like, yeah, okay, so you nailed it for 4 days. And now you have these 3 days that you just did not nail it. And the amount of calories on average you're going to eat throughout the week will be exponentially higher on average because of those 3 days that you're going off the rails like that. It adds up very, very quickly. So like doing those types of things is not good, right? So we want, like, this is where structure might be helpful. Is like, you can plan out having a splurge thing in your day. Go for it. Right.
Yeah.
But that's how you're creating structure. You're like, I know I'm going to go out to brunch on Sunday, so I'm going to make a point to have a salad for dinner, and I can plan for that. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely. Absolutely. And one thing I want to note that you said you did, which is fabulous, because I think a lot of people compensate in a different way, is you don't skip meals, right? Like if you know that you're going to have a good splurgy dinner, don't skip your breakfast, don't skip your lunch to compensate, right? Like same rule applies for holidays. Don't like not eat all day for Thanksgiving and then like go hard at dinner, right? Like make sure that you have sustenance throughout your day. I think that is so, so important.
Like if I could skip a meal, I don't know what I would do with myself. Like I've never in my life skipped a meal of my own volition. I've never done that. Like I like food too much. I'm sorry. Like that ain't happening.
Me too. Me too. And to be honest, I would be a total monster. Like people wouldn't want to be around me when I don't, have food in my system. So
I'm pretty crazy too. I get it. Yeah. So but I'm glad you brought that up, because skipping meals, definitely not a good idea.
No.
So eating wise, like what I would recommend if you're not having a
Mhm.
lot of structure is create your own. Who said you can? Like you don't have to
Love
adhere
it.
to specific times or specific things, but
Mhm.
we have like a general rule for weekends of,
Mhm.
I like to set little like flexible rules with myself where I don't feel like I'm
Mhm.
telling myself these strict things. You have to do this or else. It's like ideally, let's aim for this, something around
Mhm.
here, ballpark it, right? And if we
Mhm.
can do that, that's the way we start developing more structure until you feel like you have your own groove and your own swing of things.
Love
Because
that.
I would argue that this lack of structure that we might have on either a vacation or a weekend, if you regularly always do the same thing, that's become a new structure of chaos, and we don't want that.
Ooh, a new structure of chaos. That is deep.
hmm
That's good. Yeah, for sure.
So the other part of this is exercise, which we need to touch on. We haven't touched on that too much at all, actually. I
Yes.
briefly mentioned it with my strategies for vacation, but
Totally.
that's another thing is what do we not do? Exercise. Like, why would I want to exercise on
Yes.
my day off? Like, why would I want to work out while I'm on vacation? Like, ugh, why?
Yeah, yeah. Why
Right?
exert myself when I could kick my feet up? Yeah.
Exactly. So
Mm.
how on earth would we be able to get ourselves moving when we don't want to?
That is such a good question. And uh my mind goes to like what I tell myself, and I'm not saying this is going to work for everybody, but I usually tell myself, just take that first step. The first step's usually the hardest, right? And if I get to do 10, 15 minutes, beautiful. And odds are I get to that 10 or 15 minute mark and I'm like, okay, I'll finish. Like I'll do, 30, 45 minutes, whatever.
Mhm.
But sometimes I think there's the getting started part is probably the hardest.
Yeah.
What would you say though?
I have a couple of trains of thought going on in my head right now. So we'll see if they are
Yeah.
colliding or not. So the first thought I had was like, because I was like, it kind of depends on the situation you're in, right? Like,
Mhm.
if you're on vacation, for example,
Mhm.
that is a willing thing you're trying to do while you're on vacation is I'm going to get movement in. Now, it depends on the vacation. You might be on vacation where there's a lot of walking involved, in which case you don't necessarily have to do
True.
structured exercise if you know you're going to be doing 20 plus thousand steps a day. Like there's
Mhm.
circumstances in which you might be very, very active.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to my vacation, which was more of a resort, which is the opposite, where you're floating in a pool for way too long. So it's like, okay, I'm a swimmer, right? So like I know when you're in the water, you're buoyant, and so therefore you're not really using a lot of gravity, so you're not really burning a lot of calories, you're just kind of like floating.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
my point is like I need to do something with gravity for like at least an hour, and then I can go float in the pool for as long as I want.
Yep. Yep.
So like
Totally.
that's why I do that because I
Mhm.
know I'm not going to be moving much. And so if I can get something in, it'll make me feel at least a little bit better about what I plan to do with my meals for dinner. So
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe then you can almost have like a little bit more peace of mind, right? Because we can be like really harsh on ourselves. So that
and
maybe you can enjoy yourself a little more.
yeah, and what I also find too, and this is like a known thing with exercise, is when you do stuff that is very active, it makes you feel good. And when you feel good, you actually want to continue feeling good, and it actually encourages more
Mhm.
healthy eating habits as a result. So
Mhm.
in all likelihood, I usually don't do this anyways because like for dinner I'm not gonna get fried stuff. I want to get the bougie stuff. That's always fried. So like I'm probably just gonna get something that sounds good, but maybe isn't like covered in butter or something. I might just go, oh, that just sounds really
Right.
nice and it's really
Mhm.
tasty. It can influence your eating habits. And so like if you're doing it kind of depends on your vacation and where you want to incorporate these exercises if you wanted to do
Yeah.
them. And
Mhm.
being realistic with yourself and maybe it's like, well, I just don't want to go to the gym. It's my day off. I don't want to be in a gym. Like then
Mhm.
well, who's, like I was on a Mexican beach. So like for me, I'm like, I just walk on the beach. Like this is gonna be
Yeah.
nice. But you can do what like you can do whatever you want. Like activity is activity. How that looks doesn't matter. Like right now we're
Exactly.
talking with a video and my background's Hawaii and I keep thinking, yeah, I was
I
hiking all over these
know.
rocks behind me. Like I took this photo. So
I was gonna ask you because it's beautiful. That's
yeah, it's,
awesome.
it's a lava beach if you can't tell. And no one can see
Oh,
this, but I'm on a lava beach. So but
that's
yeah, it's like
awesome.
there are ways to be active that don't
Mhm.
necessarily mean you have to be in a gym. But
Mhm.
making a point to move on the weekends or move on your vacations or move, maybe when you're not feeling it and maybe doing something non-traditional. It doesn't have to be quote unquote exercise per se.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love your point of like, especially if usually when we go somewhere, maybe you want to go like, be a tourist or whatever. And like you said, like getting all that walking in would absolutely count in your favor for that. So I love that. That's a great
Yeah,
example.
exactly. So, when it comes down to it at the end of the day, as long as you're doing the things that make you feel good, one, two, okay, that's the big priority here, make you feel good.
Yep.
And two, you're willing to do them in some degree. And I think what you were saying before with this, just take the first step, is that's really it. Like, I set the parameter for myself for an hour because I know me, I'm gonna be floating in that dang pool for 4 or 5 hours. So of course I'm going to work out for an hour. I'm not moving for the next 5. So I'm going to do something, right? The most I'm moving is to float from one side to the other, right? It's not a significant amount of movement.
Yes.
And so I know what I'm going to be doing that day. So like my intention is, okay, well, I want to counter that somehow. But like, if you're not floating in a pool for 5 hours, maybe you're like, well, I'm just like, I'm in Hawaii and I'm like at the beach. Like, walking around in the water at the beach is just as much of a workout as it could be at the gym on a treadmill. And people don't realize that, but walking in sand sucks.
Oof, yeah, it's no joke. You don't mess around walking in sand.
Yeah.
True.
Like,
and if you're not,
workout.
yeah, for sure. And if you're not traditionally a swimmer, maybe getting some snorkeling in there, right? Absolutely would count as some movement. Like, so yeah, there's so many things.
The worse you swim, the more calories you burn.
Hey, yes,
so hey,
that's true.
if you go to a resort where you're floating in a pool, just swim really bad and you'll be fine.
That's great. Make sure you can touch the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's like, at the end of the day, prioritizing yourself, right? You're allowed to indulge, you're allowed to enjoy yourself.
Yes.
But what I think people don't realize, I hear this a lot too, where people go like, well, what about those people who can just do whatever they want and they don't have to think about this? It's like,
right.
I would argue that's not really true because, this is why I always think of this. I always think of Lizzie. Because we have a coworker named Lizzie, and she's wonderful.
We love Lizzie.
We love Lizzie, and she's a race walker. She's so fast. Like,
oh my gosh, it's insane.
She's a little shorter than you and I. We're both the same height. We're both 6 foot. She's like, what, 5'10", I think, or maybe 5'9".
Yeah.
She's not that much shorter than us, but she's a little shorter. But she can outwalk me, and I'm a fast walker. So like,
any
dang,
day. Like I can kiss her dust or whatever. Yeah.
But what I always pay attention to is like, she does this too. She bring her little baggies with her little carrots and her bell peppers and her eggs, and she'll bring her little lunches and show them off to people. But what I love is like, she's gorgeous, perfect, has no weight issues. She's great. And she does all these amazing health forward things for herself. And she's not one of those people who just goes, oh, I could do whatever I want because I'm naturally this way. It's like, no, she actually pays attention to everything that she is doing. To maintain everything. And it's so interesting and cool to see that in real time, which is a counterpoint to anybody who says that people who are thin or naturally thin don't have to worry about it. That is not true at all.
I love that. That is such a good point. And if you know Lizzie, it is very clear what her priorities are, right? Like I've seen her like show up to meetings or whatever with wet hair because she just did an ocean swim, So yeah, it's absolutely, you're totally right.
Yeah. And so it's circling back to those priorities again. But, when it comes down to it, we got to have nutrition and healthy eating and, exercise and all those things that make us healthy up there. That has to be in our kind of our priorities, the top 3 at least.
Right. It's got to be on the radar because it's not just going to happen for you.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Unfortunately, no one's going to exercise for you and no one's going to eat for you. I mean, people can eat for you, but does it help you? No. So.
No. Too true.
Exactly. But the main thing that I think we can take away from this is like what I would encourage people to do, as far as creating more structure for yourself, whether it's on the weekends or during a vacation, or maybe during the summer when your kids are off of school, like if you're a teacher and you have summer vacation, you want some structure. Who's to say you can't create structure? Go join a class at a gym so you have a daily thing that you can do, or join a league for the summer, maybe like a summer sports league if you want to have something active. Maybe you join a walking group. Maybe you just make a point to go out to the beach more often and walk more. And I'm assuming we're living in San Diego if you heard me say that sentence, or somewhere with a beach. But if you don't live somewhere with a beach, then just go walking where it's nice out that you enjoy. There's pretty views, and
absolutely.
Making a point just to find a way to create that little structure for yourself. And that's why I was suggesting classes, because I feel like we're more beholden to classes than we are to ourselves. So that might be helpful, especially if you're more of a group oriented type person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of nice when someone tells you what to do. Sorry. That's all I was thinking about.
Or I was going to say or a buddy. You know,
There you go.
call up a friend. Hey, you want to go walk? Let's go for a walk. And you can go walk around somewhere, right?
Totally.
That's a simple one. And then as
Yeah.
far as eating, maybe you just set parameters on the weekend. You know what? I'm gonna make sure my breakfast is good and my lunch is good, but dinner, I'll enjoy myself a little bit for dinner on Saturday. Or you know what? I think I want to do brunch on Sunday, but I'll make sure that my dinner is gonna be nice and healthy that afternoon.
Love it.
Like just set some minor parameters around your day that don't feel so daunting that you can't do them. Because like if you heard what I said healthy lunch, healthy breakfast, but I did not dictate what exactly that looks like. I did not tell you what that was going to be. I told you what I ate as a healthy meal, but that does not mean that you have to eat a salad and yogurt and stuff like that. Like you can sit there and say, oh, I want to have an omelet, or oh, I'd like to do this or that. You eat something on the healthier side that you like, you enjoy, make it work wherever it works in your schedule. And that's creating a little mini level of structure that can hopefully help you feel a little bit more confident on those times where it's a little less structured for you.
Right. Love that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So is there anything else you wanted to add, Kimberly?
Gosh, I mean, just kudos to what you just said. I feel like you summed it up beautifully, honestly.
I'm fresh off of vacation, so, I'm ready.
Yeah. Ripe and ready for action.
Yeah. But yeah, so with that being said, unfortunately, though, I believe it's about that time.
It comes so fast.
I know. It's over now. We have to go, but that's okay. We'll be back. And with that being said, make sure you like, share, subscribe, all those fun things. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment underneath. And just remember, I mentioned it way earlier on, but like we do offer programs and services that most people can take around the world. Like you don't have to necessarily be in San Diego for them. Our clinic is not beholden to you being a Kaiser member for a majority of the services we have. So if there's anything that you want, like if you want to work with a trainer or a dietitian, or like, you want to add structure to your life, we can help you out there. Don't hesitate to contact us. Positive Choice Integrative Wellness Center. But with that being said, until next time, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.